Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first session after the lunch break. We are here with Cierra, Townson, Lili, Klar, and Jessica Kohout-Tailor from Clemson University. And today they're going to be talking about sea to shining sea, moving from cooperation to collaboration.
Welcome to the presentation. I will warn you, we have set this up with way too many puns, so please endure that as well as you can. But we'll go ahead and get started.
So I know there's a few people just joining, but we'll start with just introducing ourselves maybe with our positions at Clemson Libraries. I'm Jessica Kohout-Tailor. As Megan said, I am the undergraduate experience librarian, and I work a lot with first-year students and do some outreach and engagement.
Hi, and I'm Lili Klar, and I work in the Information and Research Services Unit, and my role mainly focuses on outreach and research support for students.
And I'm Cierra Townson, and I forgot to introduce myself because I was so ready to get into the presentation. I work as a library specialist at the Education Media Center, one of our branch libraries on campus.
So we're really excited today to share our experience and some things that we've learned along the way. We've dug into some literature and are going to pepper our experiences throughout some things that we found in hopes to meet these learning outcomes that you see on your screen. So at the end of today's session, we would love for you to be able to identify the importance of collaboration, its benefits, and some barriers. We'd love for you to be able to describe how to start or promote a collaborative effort using some best practices. And we'd like for you to be able to identify how to grow a collaborative mindset within yourself to be able to apply to your work environment, no matter what, where you are or what you do in the library field.
And so I think a good starting place with those learning outcomes in mind is really just talking about what our collaboration experiences have been in the libraries. And so I actually started out as a student worker a long time ago at Clemson University, and I slowly worked my way up throughout the branch libraries. I worked at all the branch libraries on campus, as well as the archive. And one of the things that was really frustrating for me was really just not being given a large role in the organization. And I think it was really hard to shake my student position whenever I was able to become a full-time staff person, and even before that, a part-time staff person. So I really had to make my own way in terms of collaboration because people weren't coming to me. And a lot of the time I would literally walk between the branches that I worked at, or, I would try to connect with people through email or just through meetings and really just kind of make my mark and really show that I was a collaborator. So, and also Jessica and Lili would love to share their experiences collaboration too, I'm sure.
Yes, well, my first library experience came in the small branch of a public library system, and there were 8 employees, and we worked well together because we had to, and it was easy to do. We didn't have formal committees or task forces, but we had a collaborative mindset. It was very easy to see when books needed to be shelved or the children's area needed to be tidied up, or if we had to help each other when there were patrons waiting to check out. When I joined Clemson Libraries, though, just seeing the long list of names in the directory was daunting. I didn't really understand everyone's roles, and I had many questions but didn't know who to ask. Was I allowed to talk to people in other units? I had no idea. It wasn't as easy to jump in and work with others, and it was a steep learning curve for me before I felt comfortable in my role, collaborating with others, and really feeling like I was making a contribution to what we were doing.
Well, Lili and Cierra, I totally can relate to some of the things you said, and I'm sure a lot of our participants do as well. I was a school librarian for 7 years before I started working at Clemson Libraries, and in my school library positions that I had and in my experiences at a couple different schools, everybody was highly collaborative. The culture was just really collaborative to work together to meet students' needs and to make sure that they were successful. So it felt like we were all in the same boat, working towards the same journey. And it was like a mindset, like Lili said, you just kind of did stuff and you did it together. And so when I got to Clemson Libraries, things felt really different. I felt really kind of cut off, like I wasn't working with students as much as I was used to, and there was a lot of people's names to learn, and trying to figure out, what my role was, but also really trying to collaborate with others to, meet common goals. And so that has been challenging, and just kind of taking it, step by step has really helped me to continue that collaborative spirit, because I think it's important to kind of break down those silos that I often feel we find in some institutions.
And so no, we did turn off our cameras, so we could save on bandwidth for some people that are working from home. But before we set sail on this very wonderful journey that we have put together, it's best to define where we're coming from. Collaboration is simply defined as working together to produce something. Yet in the libraries, it feels as though the other definition dominates how we consider collaboration: mutinous cooperation. The latter can be contributed to the numerous barriers that we face, but we'll discuss those later. Collaboration really requires leadership, either mutually agreed upon or appointed, and an emphasis on sharing knowledge, problem solving, and working to reach consensus in order to realize the goals that brought the group together in the first place. And so we really want to focus on how we can, really bring people together in collaboration and collaborative efforts in this presentation.
Okay, so we've talked about what collaboration can mean, and what you see on the screen is something from the Tamarack Institute, which is a spectrum of collaboration, where you can see on one side it begins with more of that competition feel, and then moves throughout various stages, including, coexisting and communicating, cooperating, coordinating, collaborating, and full integration. You also notice that there along the top and bottom is that movement from, that protecting the turf to moving more into that trust. And so really this spectrum kind of illustrates how complex collaboration is, but also that's can be fluid. It's not just a static thing, and not all projects or things that we work on are always going to be that full integration piece. It's just to kind of be aware of that there are different stages, and to be aware of where we are and where we'd like to move with certain things. So when I was a school librarian, and even in my current position, sometimes a collaborative effort might start out as a coordinating of space situation, like, hey, come use the space and we'll work together. And then over time, it would grow to like sharing resources and, hey, what can I do for you? Or can I provide these books or this resource list? And then it would work more towards us having deeper conversations about meeting common goals. So some collaboration may seemingly start small, and they may grow over time with that relationship building piece. In their article from Cooperation to Collaboration Toward a Framework for Deepening Library Partnerships, the authors Saunders and Corning found that in the library literature, at least, collaboration really could range in what that included, to include different types of interactions, such as resource sharing, cooperative planning, and cooperative service delivery. These activities amount to the trustful rather than traitorous collaboration that we are focusing on today. So when you see the spectrum on the screen, consider where your library or even where your work is on this spectrum. I think it's important that we be able to name our current state, or where we are, in order to kind of shift those tides, if you will, to a more positive and productive direction.
Great. And our first learning outcome here is to identify the importance of collaboration, its benefits and barriers. And we found a TED Talk entitled "Why It's Time to Forget the Pecking Order at Work" that presents some ideas about how we work together. And the link to the full video is in our resources list. But this is a talk by Margaret Heffernan, a media executive, author, and educator, who dispels the notion that we achieve success by picking the brightest people in the room and giving them all the resources and power. Instead, she suggests that social connectedness is the key to successful groups because, as she says, in groups that are highly attuned and sensitive to each other, ideas can flow and grow. She asserts that helpfulness is the core to successful teams, and it routinely outperforms individual intelligence. When the going gets tough, what people need is social support, and they need to know who to ask for help. She emphasizes that what motivates people are the bonds and loyalty and trust they develop between each other. Sociologists call this social capital, which is the reliance and interdependency that builds trust. Social capital is what gives companies momentum, and social capital is what makes companies robust. It compounds with time so that teams that work together longer get better. An easy way for employees to build social capital is by taking coffee breaks together and getting to know each other. I think we're definitely in the when the going gets tough stage of work and life right now. I think it feels like we've been 6 months in a leaky boat. But so more than ever, I think we need to forget the pecking order and start working together and collaborating.
And that is what it's about, Lili, getting our crew on board. The benefits of collaboration can include pooling resources and using the expertise of others to improve services, reaching new audiences, and working more efficiently. But truly, the benefits of collaboration speak for themselves. We go from working on our own, competing, working against the unknown, to clearing the air, overcoming boundaries, and considering everyone's viewpoints. It fosters a sense of collective ownership, promotes change, and builds social capital, as Lili was saying, and fosters action and more wiser, more durable decisions. Collaboration works against that silo mentality that we have in the libraries by inviting everyone on board.
Okay, so one of our inspirations for this presentation was an article I just mentioned. It's by Saunders and Corning. And in this article, the authors identify enablers and barriers of collaboration, as well as some building blocks that they found helpful with librarians collaborating with others. Relationship building, communication, and other tools are enablers of collaboration. When collaborating, we know that communication is an important element. It's the rudder or oars in us pushing along in our journey, getting to know people and potential partners, brainstorming ideas together, the use of active listening, expressing support, and providing and accepting constructive feedback are all pieces of relationship building. Another helpful enabler of collaboration is to reflect on the collaborative project and talk together about what went well and what would have been done differently next time. So for my own experience, Lili and I worked together on a de-stressing program for our patrons, our students who come in around exam time. I know a lot of public libraries and school libraries do this. And we partner with some people on campus to pull some resources and our expertise together. And we've been collaborating for maybe 3 or 4 semesters. And so what we do is we reflect on how each semester goes after we create the program. And it's just a really quick informal way of asking, hey, what really worked well this time? What do we need to change? It's allowed us to take some risk and also just to be open and honest with one another in order to make our programming as relevant as possible. So developing, in addition to developing understanding of and being sensitive to the cultural differences across organizations or units that you are collaborating with is really important. This includes understanding each other's work practices, priorities, and language. We know just between, different job responsibilities, sometimes the lexicon changes, the language is just different. Building on those relationships over time includes respecting one another, trusting each other, feeling valued. As we know that it's important for everyone to feel like they are valued and belong. Some examples of this include to think of yourself as part of a team, even with different like even when there's different power dynamics in the group. So like if we're working with managers or supervisors, we're still on that team together. We're in the same boat, if you will. It's also important to express appreciation of the work that others do. This can be really simple, like in an email or a message, or just, for recognizing it, verbally in front of our peers. Lastly, there are technological tools that can help find partners and can help with working together. So social media may be helpful to find other partners to reach out to. Google Drive can allow for the use of shared documents. Some organizations have Microsoft Teams, which allows people to message and share documents. And Trello, which is a free product, can help with organizing collaborative projects. So Cierra and Lili, what has been your experience with relationship building, communication, and tools for collaboration during COVID-19?
I honestly really like to talk to that social media piece, and I can't even take credit for it, which makes me sad. But I have a lot of student workers that work under me, and then a manager that works over me, of course. And one thing that I was really excited to see was that our manager invited our students to essentially take over our social media at a time where we're really trying to connect with others and really bring the students back to the building. And really just bring our patrons back in. And so having that, personal piece, allowing our students to have that casual collaboration on our social media has really been instrumental in getting our students back on campus to see us.
Yeah, it's great to hear, Cierra. And before I joined Clemson Libraries 4 years ago, I hadn't even used email very much at work. So using technology has all been new for me. And in March, when we started working from home, we were inundated with options. WebEx, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Box, Google Docs. It was a lot. And over the past 6 months, I've come to realize that I don't have to be on every platform and I don't have to be active on every platform. Email is still my primary communication tool, but I use Teams for quick conversations, and we've established some social channels on there so I can share a joke or meme on Teams. However, I've also texted people and called them on their phones. And now that I'm back on campus a few days a week, Jessica and I only have a wall between us, but we still need to Zoom for meetings. So I can literally hear what she's saying in our meetings from the other side of the wall. But I've learned that there's a compromise. Do use whatever tool you're comfortable with and the people you're collaborating are comfortable with. And I don't use all the tools that we have, but I've learned what I need to get my work done. So it's been a 6 months of learning new technology, but I think I've found a balance now.
Yeah, and I think it's especially interesting when we think about all of the expectations that we have on us, like just learning, the technology and the programs that we do have to learn. But there's also that expectation in our jobs to collaborate. But we don't have much guidance on how to do this in the best ways. And it's almost like giving us a ship with no charted path. There are also barriers when we try to collaborate, or, barrier reefs in our journey to collaboration. Common barriers that library workers face include a lack of time, staffing, funding, and sometimes difficulty with sharing information and ideas. We discussed as a group our own experiences with collaboration and also identified some additional challenges. Being forced to collaborate and having a lack of buy-in, not knowing where to start or grow a collaborative project, feeling like skills and knowledge are not valued. We also ensure different waves of the imposter, or we also feel different waves of the imposter phenomenon that result from competing priorities and people. Most people want to boost their documentation, having differing goals and hierarchical expectations from others, and don't want to celebrate others for their accomplishments. We need to be able to shift from that them mentality to an us mentality. And that really just starts with you, with us.
Well, so that's definitely some barriers I'm sure we're all familiar with, and no matter where we work or have worked. But on the flip side of the barriers are, what are these essential building blocks to successful collaboration? And so on the screen, you'll see some building blocks that may provide some guidance for best practices. Planning can begin before an actual collaborative effort. Sometimes it can look more strategic than at other times, and sometimes a needs assessment is used to gather needs. This could be formal or informal, such as conducting surveys, providing feedback boards for patrons, having just dialogue with our patrons, and or focus groups. Ensuring the outcomes of the collaboration and project align with the goals, mission, and strategic plan of the organization and values of partners is really important for an effective collaboration. Finding common ground or common goals and benefits for all partners help to make a collaboration successful. Role and task definition includes identifying the role and responsibilities of contributors, as well as just recognizing the different types of expertise and resources that people bring to the collaborative table. Role and task definition is one way to ensure accountability for all partners, as each partner can be clear about what's expected. One idea is to have a memo of understanding, which provides clear expectations where partners sign off on what they are expected to do during the partnership. In my own collaborations, both as a school librarian and my role here, I've used more of informal ways, maybe a shared Google document or a shared document of some sort, where maybe we have our responsibilities and what we need to have done next on a shared document. This can also be following up with email about what our next steps are. I've never had a memo of understanding, but that was out there in the literature, so I wanted to throw that out there. Another building block is assessment. So it's really important for us to understand if our goals were reached, and thinking through metrics. It really can vary for each project rather. It can be a certain deliverable, or just have we reached our new audience that we were striving for. So project management does play a role in successful collaborations, as collaborating can be complex and involve many people. Providing a place for workflow and monitoring that workflow is important. These can be documenting meetings and decisions through minutes, creating budgets, timetables, and schedules. In the library literature, there's more information out there on project management. But like we said in the beginning, just that how to collaborate can often be elusive.
Our second learning objective is to describe how to start or promote a collaborative effort using best practices. And one enabler we'd like to talk about is Tuckman's team development model. Tuckman was a psychologist who researched group dynamics and proposed a theory about stages of group development that has been popular in the corporate world for many decades. Tuckman says that teams must go through all these phases in order to grow, face up to challenges, tackle problems, find solutions, plan work, and deliver results. The first stage is forming and takes place at the start of a project when everyone is excited to begin but may be unclear about each person's role. The ship is still in dry dock, so to speak, and the crew is asking questions, getting to know each other, and clarifying what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what the end goals are. Everyone is excited to get started, but there also may be confusion. At this initial stage, the team needs clarity and connection. This is the time to get to know team members and plan how you'll work together. You can start your first meeting with icebreakers and detail what your team is trying to achieve and how you'll know if you're successful. Once form has been established, the team moves on to the storming stage, where the hard work begins and the team takes on the incremental steps needed to reach the goal. It's important to build a shared understanding across the team and with stakeholders during this phase. The ship has just set sail and the crew is trying to steer it in the right direction while figuring out who has the skills to handle each required task. This is the stage where each member's roles and responsibilities are spelled out, and the team should outline any other expectations team members have of each other. Additionally, everyone should know what the end product of the team looks like, so that you're all heading towards the same goal. Next, the team moves on to the norming stage, where everyone knows what they're doing, so they want to keep the momentum going because they're making good progress. This is the phase where the ship has some wind in its sails and the crew can see landfall. The captain can head below deck and know that the ship will stay the course. At this stage, the team wants to keep the momentum going. Team members can ask each other for feedback to confirm that they're fulfilling their responsibilities on the team and that all members are making steady progress towards the goal. The fourth stage is performing, when the ship is sailing into port. The hard work is behind you and you have reached your destination. The crew have bonded on the journey and they can celebrate their success. This is the time for the team to reflect on their work and decide on how they may want to adjust their sails for the next journey. This is the time to reflect on what went well and what didn't, and agree on any adjustments to make for future team projects. Tuckman later added a final stage, adjourning, but the initial 4 phases form the crux of his theory and are often considered to be cyclical, not linear, because changes may occur during the process that sees the team going back to a previous stage before continuing. And even subtle changes cause us to adjust the way we work, such as a new person joining the team would cause the team to go back to the forming stage, as it's essentially a new team. So if you can be intentional about working in a team, you'll accomplish more at a faster rate.
So another tool that you could use is actually Steiners Taxonomy of Task. Ivan Steiner actually wrote the book on group processes and productivity. Highly recommend checking out our resources to learn about that one. One way to efficiently collaborate is to consider the ways in which we can break down tasks, thinking of them in 3 ways. So in terms of their components, the focus, and also the interdependence of tasks. You can consider the components of a task to determine if they're individual or divisible tasks. So when Jessica, Lili, and I made this presentation, we actually created the concept together in a unitary way. We didn't really devise out tasks and things like that. Another thing to consider is your focus, like on quality or quantity. If you're focusing on quality, you are looking for the optimal solution. If you're focusing on quantity, of course, you want to maximize the number of tasks completed. If you start with these focuses in mind, you'll be able to orient your tasks effectively. Last but not least, consider the interdependence of tasks in a variety of combinational strategies. These strategies allow members to contribute individually or combine them with a group in an interdependent way. I won't discuss all of them because there's a lot, but additive tasks would allow everyone to contribute individually to create a greater output. This would be seen as having divisible, maximizable components. Disjunctive tasks, on the other hand, has group members determining a single solution for the entire group, seen as unitary and optimizing. There are also compensatory, conjunctive, and discretionary tasks, but all of these interdependent combinational strategies work to steer the course of your work. Determining the tasks that the group will undertake within the context of this taxonomy will ultimately contribute to the appropriate role assignment, the goal, and the amount of collaboration that is needed. For examples of these 2 models, I was actually on a task force that helped prepare others or patrons, or really our staff people for our patrons, returning to the library during the pandemic. We formed our group with perspectives that would combine all of our branch perspectives. So that was bringing in everyone from the branch libraries as well as the archive. We then, in a unitary way, determined our charge and then divided up our work into subsections. After storming on our work, we set group norms, determining how and how often everyone would communicate or report issues, set deadlines that worked for everyone, and tried to optimize our efforts as we performed our tasks. And with that example, Jessica and Lili, how have you started or promoted a collaborative effort using best practices?
Yeah, Cierra. So I had a outreach program for first-year students, beginning of the school year, not this year, unfortunately, but last year, where we wanted kind of a welcome back event, which I know some public libraries and school libraries may do during certain parts of the year to welcome their patrons into their libraries. And so I put out a call, just, hey, who wants to help me? And anyone could help. And a group of lovely, dedicated people offered to help. And we really got together and really started to think through what our goals were together as a team. What did we want students to be able to know and do by the end of the event? And so we finally got to a place where we decided on an arcade of the library that would use games and play to help students just become familiar with resources and spaces and places. And really within that team that I worked with, people volunteered for something that they felt gravitated to, an idea that they may have come up with for that game. And then they just ran with it. We would check in as a group, asking what each other needed, but we really just tried to meet to stay on task and to make sure that we were meeting our goals.
Yes, and when I worked at the public library, there were no formal channels for collaborating, as I mentioned earlier, but we knew that we wanted to create programs for patrons. So we came together in a sort of an ad hoc way. Someone would suggest an idea, say a craft night for adults. Then we would get together and talk about who had the skills to lead the program, which project we were going to advertise, and we brainstorm ideas, figure out a budget, get materials. There was often no budget, so figure out how to use the materials we had on hand to make this craft work, decide on the dates and times, create flyers, publicize it, and then on the day ensure that the program ran smoothly, and make sure that your plan for nobody turning up to 20 people turning up. So we had to accommodate a huge range of potential numbers of attendees. And then after each program, we had to debrief, talk to the patrons, ask them what they liked and didn't like about it, and try to improve on the program for next time. And I think even in that casual way, we were going through steps to collaborate and reflect. We just didn't have a formal name for it, but we were definitely collaborating well.
So moving on to our third and final objective for today. So how do we identify how to grow a collaborative mindset within ourselves to be able to work and apply in our various work environments? Okay, so there's a lot going on this screen, but basically, on our collaborative journey, relationship and team building is an important life jacket for us, if you will. A common goal can be identified in several ways. One way to achieve this is having a conversation with the team to identify the common goal through creating or reviewing a charter or purpose. Another strategy includes just having a discussion of why the team exists with team members. So it can just be very informal as well. This is something I use often when I work with partners myself, as I try to align with those that might have common goals of outreach as I do. I use email to reach out to people just to see if they would want to work together on a project. Sometimes it doesn't pan out. So it can be just a matter of timing as well, but I'm really trying to build relationships with partners so that we can hopefully work together. So because our team members come from different experiences and have diverse perspectives, we can appreciate diversity by having the mindset to learn as much as we can from others. We want to keep in mind that people will differ from one another. We do want to evaluate new ideas based on its merits, and we want to not avoid the differences that the team has, right? That's the good thing about teams is the differences that we bring to the table. We want to avoid remarks that draw attention to a team member's unique characteristics. When I lead a group, I use communication norms to help remind people to use active listening, just because sometimes groups can be big and we want everybody's ideas to be heard. And I use this when I was a school librarian with students, just to really listen and hear people out and give everyone a chance to speak. Trust is really important to the team, and ways to foster this trust include being honest, actively working to resolve conflicts, avoid talking behind people's backs, trusting in others, and giving your team the benefit of the doubt. We must trust our team before they can trust us. Knowing our roles and responsibilities on the team create efficiency, and flexibility. This can be achieved by reviewing roles frequently, clarifying responsibilities when making action plans, and figuring out how to help each other. And that can just be a simple conversation of, can you remind me of what my goal is or what I'm supposed to be working on, or, how does my task differ from my colleague's task? So we know that miscommunication can take a toll on teams. So ways to improve communication include erring on the side of over-communication, seeking to understand all perspectives, taking responsibility for being heard and understood, working to clear up misunderstandings in a timely manner, and recognizing the efforts of the team members. One strategy is to use the 7 C's of communication, which Lili will talk about next. For me, I copy everyone on emails or messages and kind of err on the side of that over communication piece. And I do try to recognize everyone's effort and try to be gracious for people giving of their time and effort towards a project. Lastly, an effective collaborative team needs to recognize the need to measure and monitor the services created by the team with that balancing of the dynamics within the team. Some strategies to do this include checking in with the team and discussing the effectiveness of team meetings, like, hey, how are we doing? Are we on task? Are we really meeting as much as we should be? Do we need to meet less? So just really having those conversations with team members. We also want to celebrate team efforts when results are achieved, praise individual effort, and even assign some team members to monitor the task at hand while other team members monitor relationship needs. So one team member could just monitor how we are in reaching our goal, while another team member or sets of team members can monitor, like, how is everybody doing and feeling about the team as a relationship piece.
So the 7 C's of effective communication are a vital part of your role in communicating with patrons, colleagues, and teams. So these 7 principles are elements that you can keep in mind to ensure that you're conveying your message effectively in both written and verbal communications. You're probably already using these principles, but being more intentional about it and ensuring that all the 7 C's are on your messages will help your listeners better understand what you're saying and ensure that your message isn't misunderstood. The first C is clarity, and clarity makes understanding easier and involves using clear language to emphasize the essence of the message. And at times, I often wish that students who come to the services desk at our library would be clear when they just come up and ask for an adapter. They'd like to check out an adapter. And with that information, I don't know what adapter they're talking about. So it takes longer to learn what exact adapter they want. But if they were to be clearer and specify exactly what adapter they want, then it would make our conversation flow a lot more smoothly. The next C is conciseness. And everyone's time is valuable, so we should respect people's times, especially in meetings. We should be concise. And I think this is where the internet joke about the unproductive meeting that could have been an email comes in. When we communicate with others, we should respect their time and just get our point across without any superfluous communication or information. The next C is concreteness. And in the workplace, you should support your messages with specific facts and figures and use language that is not ambiguous so that your message can't be misinterpreted. So this is important when we're explaining to patrons how to use the printers or to log into the computers, or if you're on reference chatting with someone, explaining how to request an interlibrary loan. It's important to just stick to the facts and figures and make sure that your message isn't ambiguous. Correctness is the next C. And I think this has evolved over time and these days doesn't just refer to grammar and style. A correct use of language increases trustworthiness and the receiver will feel that they're being taken seriously. So I think correctness here means, are you using inclusive language? Are you speaking to an audience who first language isn't English? Are all your facts and figures correct? You should consider all these factors when you're relaying important messages. Consideration is the next C, and this means taking the audience into account and gearing your message towards them. Are you considering the listener's professional knowledge, level of education, age, interests? Are you taking all those into account? So if you're helping a freshman student or a community patron at the services desk, be mindful not to use library jargon. They may not understand what you're talking about if you're talking about LibGuides or hold shelves or things like that. So just consider your audience when you're communicating with them. Completeness is the next C, and this message is also, this also means that your message should be geared to the receiver's perception of the world and should contain all the facts that are required for the receiver to understand your message. So a complete message will help the listener with any decisions they have to make because they'll have all the crucial information. So for example, if you're helping a patron with an interlibrary loan, you can explain the entire process, walk them through step by step. But if you don't tell them that it's going to take 1 or 2 weeks for the book to get there, that might be a vital piece of information that they needed, and they may not request the book if it's not going to get there in time. So just remember that it's from the perspective of the receiver. What information do they need to process what you're telling them? And the 7th C is courtesy. And I think this principle is one that we all try to convey. But again, the important point to remember is that you should consider it from the point of view of the receiver. It should be positive and focused to the audience. So at Clemson, we have a reference chat service. You can chat with a librarian from our website. And after working here for a while, I noticed that my responses were very formal compared with my colleagues. When I went and had a look at past transcripts, my responses were like, due to an extended period of inactivity, I'm going to end this chat. And my colleagues were writing, are you still there? So I had to change the way I respond because I've been assuming that everyone wants written language to be very formal, but it may be a student on there who might appreciate more casual language when interacting with them. So again, keep your audience in mind when you're communicating. And over the years, 2 variations have been added, creativity and credibility, which will improve your communication even more.
So as you can tell, we're really just saying, hey, collaboration really starts with you. But I think I can tell that we're getting a little close to time, but I think right now would be a good time to kind of shake it up a little bit and do a poll. So I'm going to launch a poll on the screen. You can just respond with what personality type that you most identify with. All right, I'll go ahead and end it there. But as you can see, introvert typically takes the cake. So when we realize that, we know that a lot of organizations really rely on the extroverted tendencies of people, I guess those ambiverts and the extroverts themselves. And so when we say that, collaboration starts with you, it does kind of rely on you trying to be a self-starter and really desiring to work with other people. And anyone can really do that. But going from there, let me ask you this. Are you someone who goes full steam ahead or someone who waits for wind to feel your sails? Organizations, as I said, tend to default to those dominant personalities or those captains. Our communication styles can be categorized into 4 distinct categories: dominant, influencer, steady, and conscientious. If we always cater to our dominant group, though, our relationship builders, our calm cooperators, and our quality communicators that like working on their own, They all get buried. So we must consider both introverted and extroverted work styles to support this range of communicators. No one necessarily falls neatly into either category, but knowing your communication style and that of others can help reduce misunderstandings and encourage collaboration. If you're not willing to learn the personality types, you can at least learn those basic types and what their general preferences might be, as you can see on the screen. But going from there, in order to feel supported and also support others in a collaborative effort, and as you can tell, this is a summary screen, there are certain skills that you must introduce if the group does not first possess it. I use the word skill deliberately because collaboration merges your knowledge and expertise with that of others, essentially forming you into a crew with a shared goal in mind, keeping the boat afloat and staying the course. In terms of group communication, y'all need to trust each other when the waters are rough. That trust will come from personal interaction, but that personal interaction needs to be guided by decided upon values and general respect for others, as Jessica has mentioned. If the group cannot determine their significance or how they're going to communicate, I can guarantee eventual mutiny. How frustrating is it to have a group join, meet once, and then not know who the leader is, when the next meeting will be, how often you're going to communicate, who has what role, like anything. Those are real barriers to group communication. Everyone must also be willing to mitigate barriers that each group member faces too. Those barriers could be physical, perceptual, emotional, interpersonal, cultural, or even attributed to differences in language, just as Lili said. That library jargon can really break down communication. Imagine if I talked in boat metaphors all day, exhausting, because you'd always be cracking up, but also because you wouldn't be able to access my message. How can you ensure you own your own personal success in conversations? Try not to assume you know what another person is saying or wanting to contribute. Let others speak for themselves. When they're talking, be open to them. Confirm what you understand and actively listen. When you've got something to contribute, say it. Say that you're a lookout that sees an iceberg or a captain that notices a blip on the radar. You need to be able to call it out. Don't think that your expertise is not worthy. Y'all may be affected by imposter syndrome, which I don't think everybody is, but the boat or group effort might sink if you don't share your perspective. You have to be open, accessible to others, and be organized in the way that you present information. And so with that, really just think about the fact that collaboration requires being intentional, and it's about cultivating a culture in your own skill set. It can start small and grow over time, and we hope you learn something to propel your collaboration journey.
I put a link in the chat to a tiny URL with our references. And of course, I know we have 3 minutes, but we're happy to take any questions in the chat or otherwise.
And if you have anything you'd like to follow up with, please feel free to email us. I think our email addresses are all on that screen there.
We appreciate y'all taking this journey with us on a lot of our boat metaphors today.
See, no questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.